right, now it's live. Okay.
Okay. Anytime. That's why I'm like, I want to practice with you so that we go through it. But
yeah, I thought I had practiced.
And we got the smiley faces and everything. Are people commenting?
Yeah, so Crypto Fees is joining. I'm going to play his track.
Oh, yes. Awesome. Okay, we're going.
All right. Hey, sorry everybody for this, I'm going to end this call, my tech support call. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And we're going to listen to a little music. Welcome. Sorry. I did in fact practice, but turns out I practiced with Periscope and it's a little different with Twitter. I apologize. I'm really glad that people are here and excited about this. Let's listen to Telos Do the Most by Crypto Fees. I love that we have our own theme songs. We're going to play Marshall's awesome new song that dropped today on the outro when we're done. So, yeah. Right? Okay. Hey, welcome everybody. I'm sorry we started late. I'm Douglas Horn. This is the Telos Tuesday, the first Telos Tuesday. Very excited to be here. We are going to do an AMA today, talking about CPU. And yeah, awesome beats. I'm loving the beats. I'm not sure if you guys have heard this other. This is going to be our outro, but just give you guys a little heads up on this. I think it's pretty great. The song from Marshall as well. We'll see. We'll listen to that in a bit. Hey, so we're here to talk about. Hey guys, we're here to talk about what we're doing on CPU on Telos. So I'm going to get back to it because I got a little false start on this, and I apologize for that. So really, for anybody who doesn't know, most people here probably are kind of aware that there's CPU and there's CPU issues and things like that, and want to know what we're doing about them. Well, let me just kind of step back for anybody who doesn't understand what's going on here and say EOS.io, Telos, EOS, and other chains set out to solve some problems that existed on Ethereum and similar second generation blockchains. And that is that every time you did something, you had to pay a transaction fee. And if you didn't have the fee, you couldn't do transactions. It's actually a big problem. So one of the big advantages that of the EOS.io system is that you don't need to have transaction fees. You could stake. What does that mean? Well, if you stake 1% of the Telos that in the system, then that means that you're able to use 1% of the system resources. That's in lieu of paying, and it's a great model. It's a model that's newer and needs some fine tuning, but it's a great model and it's very important. And for the past 2 years, I've been going out and telling people how great this was and how we really need to keep people aware of this and let people know that this is a better system than what's happening in other blockchains, because basically you can set aside an amount of Telos or EOS or whatever, and it will cover your transactions, and you don't have to buy anymore. And if prices change in the future, it doesn't really matter because you've already staked it. It's not being consumed, and so you can basically use an dApp forever, right? If you get a lot more popular, you may need to buy some more or something like that. But it's a lot easier to understand, and you're not paying money to use your app. Okay, so that's the system we have. Problem is that when not everything is being used, then there's an extra pool of tokens that are not of resources that aren't being used, and so it's set up initially so that anyone can use that. And early on, that was being exploited. When you have a big set of unused tokens, what's going to happen is not that everyone's going to use them share and share alike. What's actually going to happen is that 1 or 2 or 3 people are going to come in and just use those. That's going to be their business plan instead of buying. That happened early on EOS, and so Rex was actually brought in. The resource exchange was actually brought in as an attempt to address that. So people, because the problem was people were staking because they wanted to own their EOS, or Telos, but they weren't using those resources right now. So it'll let people sell those resources or rent those resources out to other people without renting out their tokens, still own their tokens and still stake for themselves if they wanted. So that gets us to today, where we have this system, but some people are buying a lot of REX and some people are using a lot of CPU and clogging it up. There's a contract on a token on EOS called IDOS, and there's a similar token on Telos called Rich. And basically they're doing what's kind of the stupidest thing in the world, which is doing proof of work mining on a delegated proof of stake chain. It's ridiculous. It adds no value to anything. And it's a big step backwards. Essentially, it's, people like to poke around the edges and see if there are ways to bonk the system or to test the system, right? That's a great trait about computer folks. We like to try what we can do, but it's a problem that we need to address. So the big problem is right now, for the past basically 2 months, this IDOS contract has clogged up EOS resources, and to the point where for many users it's practically unusable, right? So Telos has been, so people want to know what the question is, what are we doing for that? Well, we're doing a few things. So first of all, the situation on Telos is really not anywhere near as bad as on EOS. We are right now, if you look at blocktivity.info, we are doing about 5 million transactions per 24 hours, much lower than our high point, which was around 32. One of the things that brought that down is that many BPs began gray listing the 5 or 6 accounts that are mining Rich. So most people won't have any problem. The only problem people have, gray listing, by the way, means only processing transactions that people have actually paid for, that they actually have staked the resources for. So not letting those accounts have that leeway. This is something that's been done on EOS. It's a pretty good system for this. It's pretty easy. The only problem is that right now, block producers that are not gray listing, so the gray listing stops all these unpaid transactions, right? When they hit a block producer that is not using a gray list, right? Then all of those things accumulate right then, and so some block producers are getting a big bunch of transactions that others have waited on, right? That have denied because they weren't staking enough resources. Those happen all at once, and every once in a while you will get a block on Telos where your transaction is having a hard time going through because all these things hit at the same time, right? These miners all hit this at the same time, miners, right? So the rich coin people, when they hit a BP that is not gray listing. Okay, so it's actually working fairly well. We may have more people gray list, but we have a much more comprehensive plan. That's what I want to talk about. And the goals of this plan is there's about four things we want to do here. We want to make sure that transactions are easy and free for casual and occasional users, right? Because that's important. We want to maintain the free transaction staking for larger users, right? Because that's important. And then we have to find a layer in the middle for people who are doing more transactions than just a few, but not doing as much as a really big DApp. How do we make sure that there's some middle ground? And and then once we have all those things set up, which are set up in the Turin plan, which I'll discuss in a second. Once we have those, then we can just turn off resource leniency and everyone pays their own way. The new users have their hands held, get some hand holding so that they have some universal basic transactions, right? UBTX. That concept is like this, right? So Telos has had free account creation from the very start because we realize that there's a huge value in bringing in new users and letting it be really easy, right? So yeah, UBI for CPU, right? It's UBTX, Universal Basic Transactions. I think it was Jesse Schulman of Kalios who coined that. And I think it's really smart. So we understand it's really worthwhile to have give new people new accounts so they can get on board easily. Well, in the same way, it's very worthwhile to give everyone a small number of free transactions per day so that these new users can start using the blockchain, right? And so everyone can use it at some small level. When we were talking about when I was talking about the resource leniency before, that means that imagine there's this big chunk of CPU time that is available, it exists, but no one's actually using it. So before, what we were doing is, and what EOS was doing, was we were saying, okay, anyone can use this. Well, when anyone can use it, then it gets exploited. What you see is a few people use it, and most people aren't using it. And those few people who use it kind of come to rely on it, right? Like a lot of dice games and things like that have. So we think there's another way to do this, which is instead of just saying, hey, here's a big bucket that anyone can drink from, we kind of make a bunch of little buckets. We say everyone can have these 3 or 4 or 5 transactions per day. If you need more than that in a day, we have other ways to address that. So that's how the universal basic transactions are going to work. It takes basically that same pool of unused transactions, but instead of allowing anyone to use it at any amount they want, it allows anyone to use it, but only a few. And right that way, it prevents exploitation. This is actually this whole thing is actually a pretty good system. There's just a few shortcomings that we need to patch up. This is not really something to be thrown out. And I know we should talk about what the competing plans are. But I am of the and a lot of the people running Telos are of the opinion that it's important to keep free transactions. It's important to make sure this works for everybody. But this is actually a pretty good model, and there's a better way to go than throwing it out is just to continuously optimize. And Telos has a real great advantage here in that we have very highly responsive BPs and our own Telos core devs that work together really efficiently. We've had several issues where a small problem has been found, or somebody tried to hack an election, and the Telos core devs, the TCD, working together with the BPs, because everyone's so responsive and paying attention and like in it to win it, right, to make the great chain. Then we were able to solve these things. Like we had a problem recently. A user named Yellow found an exploit that we weren't aware of, and we solved it. I'm going to tell you, we solved this in 36 hours from discovery to working a plan to figuring it out. To me and Peter and Craig Brands and others were trying to figure this out. We tried a few things, and we not only got this thing. A good solution that didn't upset any, that didn't upset the apple cart, right? That worked well. But we got this done, tested on StageNet, tested on testnet, proposed on mainnet, written up and merged in GitHub, so everyone could check this out in 36 hours. Personally, I think that's a huge success story in any crypto. I think any crypto who can do that is doing right. Telos is in that club, and because of that, we don't necessarily have to find one big grandiose, this is the solution for everything. Because when you try and find the grandiose, this is a solution for everything, there's a chance that something's wrong. Much better way to do it, and this is sort of the Telos way in my mind, is that we say, hey, let's improve and let's look around and see if we're solving this. And because we don't have to count on one big action that everybody claps, you guys did your job as BPs, hooray. We can just do as a daily or weekly or whatever thing. We can say, okay, this is what we need to do here. We're going to do small changes. We make small changes, there's a lot less chance of overshooting it and creating a new problem. So my belief, and so far it's been the belief of most people around Telos, is let's make small, well-planned and tested changes. Let's err on the side of doing too little at first, because if there's a problem, as a result, then we won't have to backpedal and fix the new problem. And if it works and it gets us in the right direction, then we can do more of it, because we don't have to have one big grandiose action. We can do just a series of small actions. This is how almost every working system functions. So anyway, I think that's important. So we introduced some time ago something called the TRIM plan. It's the Telos Resource Improved Management Plan. And it has those three goals that we had. We wanted to make it easy for new people. We wanted to make sure that big dApps and business users and enterprises would be able to stake so they never have to pay. That's a big promise of EOS, IO, and Telos. And then something in the middle to make sure that everybody, that people who fall between those are also able to use, but probably means that they're paying their own way in one way or the other, because that's the way that this works, right? The blockchain is not a charity. It's not a wealth redistribution system. I mean, those things, charity and UBI and things like that can exist on Telos, but in and of itself, if that's the way it runs, then it won't work long term. And we need it to work for 500 or 5,000 years, right? That's really my belief is we can get Telos working for 5 years, it'll be running in 5,000 years. So it needs to be something that's economically sustainable, and just giving away tokens doesn't work. But it is in the benefit of Telos to make it really easy at a small level, because that onboards people, that builds the system. It's important. Adoption is really a key here. So that's our approach. Make it easy for new people. Keep the tree transactions for existing folks, for existing big holders, and not make them rent their own rec from themselves. And then make sure the middle is covered. So how are we going to do this? Well, we came out several months ago, actually, with the TRIM plan and some. We were actually fairly far ahead on this. I wrote something maybe almost 3 months ago about this problem. About 6 weeks after that, when it expanded, we came out, the Telos core devs and BPs came out with the TRIM plan, and there's 7 steps in the TRIM plan. So let me just kind of go over them real quick. The first step is to limit how much CPU Rex any one account can buy. Right now on EOS or Telos, for another day or two, anyone can buy any amount of Rex. That doesn't even make sense, right? We saw an exploit with Rex is a common resource. We shouldn't allow there to be. It's not in the interest of the chain to allow one person to corner that. That's a mistake. So so I proposed that about 3 months ago. Ryan from Telosology, BP, has been working on that, and he and the Telos USA guys, Michael, have been testing that, and that's been tested now. It's been written. It's been tested on StageNet and TestNet. We've found some issues and we're fixing them, but I really think that this is going to be within 1 week. We're going to have this step deployed, which is no one can buy more than a certain percentage. I think right now it's 0.01% of all Rex. And again, we're building it so it's configurable, so that new people, so the BPs can say, oh, actually this should be 0.005%, and that's better. Let's make a small change. We don't have to push any more code. It's a configurable table, which is how we do a lot of things, right? So that's about to deploy. It would be deployed already if we weren't, testing so carefully, which is a good thing. Every time, by the way, every time you hear about something that you want deployed, right, that it's delayed due to testing, be really glad that it's delayed due to testing, because it means that we care, and we're not going to just put something on the mainnet that may not be safe. And to be quite honest, we have found some big gotchas, and I cannot tell you how many times I've said, oh, thank God we tested this. Even though I'm personally an impatient person as well, I would like these things to happen. But every time you hear that something is taking a little extra time in testing, like say a little prayer or something, because that's a good thing. You want the problems to be found in testing, not in production. So I think that's actually a real strength. Okay, that was step 1. So step 1 is about to be deployed. Step 2 is to create this UBTX, right? This Universal Basic Transactions pool, right? by using some of the 1 million Telos per month that is just gifted to the REX program to support staking rewards, right? So we are, right now we're just gifting that and we're not getting any Telos back. So we are, if the plan is we actually turn some of that into a purchase of REX, right? It keeps the staking rewards the same. It actually raises the price of REX a little bit, which is good. And that fund that goes into a pool that funds the universal basic transactions I was talking about before. That the status of that is that the TCD is looking at 3 approaches right now. One is to use gray mass fuel, which seems like a great system, but has may have an issue, and we have to look at that. And then 2 others are Telos Core Dev based approaches. Once we have that, then we'll have this. The sending tokens to it is already set. We're going to be able to send 1 million tokens to this every month for years to come with no inflation on Telos. So we just want to find a good solution to create this universal basic transaction pool. That's in process. I think within 3 or 4 weeks that'll be deployed. Step 3 of the REX plan is to let wallets help manage resource for those middle ground users, right? There's two things that are happening there. One is simply create a token where they can pay, where wallets can pay for Telos transactions, like the Squirrel token. So any Squirrel wallet users can use Squirrel tokens. Never have to think about their transactions, the resources. Those will just be done. They pay a small convenience fee, but for people who want to just be able to set it and forget it, that's a great way to go. Another thing we're going to be other wallets may also do this. Another thing that we're adding is to let the wallets actually fail silently, right? So and manage things behind the scenes. So for example, if you're using a wallet and you needed some REX or some RAM or whatever, and right now what it does is it fails, and then you go and buy some CPU or buy some REX or buy some RAM or whatever. But it's entirely possible for us to simply have the wallets just do that. As long as you've checked the box that says, hey, pay up to 0.01 Telos for more CPU if I needed to do this transaction, and don't stop the transaction because really I just want to do the transaction without thinking about it, the wallet can handle that for you. And that's something that we're working on. It's a really simple way to handle resources, right? The wallets can handle everything. So we've been working with the wallet makers to add this soon. Yeah, and fees, as the question from Stella, the fees are possible. The Squirrel token is essentially a fee that you pay to not have to worry about it. That is both of those things are happening under the step 3, which is let the wallets help with resources. Step 4 is to increase the floor price of REX CPU. So one of the problems is when EOS and Telos turned on REX, we just used the out-of-the-box settings, and we didn't look as carefully as we should have at what those should have been. But now we've learned our lesson. Until about 2 weeks ago, you could buy 3,000 Telos worth of CPU for 1 Telos for a month. That's really a lot. That ratio is off. So thanks to Rory Mapstone of EOS South Africa and some other people working with him, we were able to test and then set on mainnet a 5 times increase of that. So instead of 3,000 Telos for each worth of resources for each Telos you pay in direct, it's now 600 to 1. That means any such attacks cost 5 times as much, right? And we don't think this is the end, as I was saying before. We don't think this is the final price. We just think it's a good place to start. And as we see how the effects go, we can raise that really easily just with a simple MSIG. That is done, right? And we can continuously, that step is done. We can continuously monitor that and adjust it as needed without any real new stuff necessary. Step 5, real quickly, is to let dApps just manage transaction fees for all of their users. We're encouraging this. There's a new protocol that we on Telos approved called Only Bill First Authorizer. It's one of the new protocols from EOSIO 1.8. And that's set up, and we're already, our best practices when we talk to dApps is already to say to them, please use this. Also, a lot of dApps are being granted their resources from the Good Grant program, which means they're not paying for it anyway. And the Good Grant program, we've said to these people, will please pay for your people, for your users. We'll just stake more to enable that. That's actually a really great one. It's easy. I think that's becoming a best practice on EOS and Telos and all the chains. Step 6 is that once we have done all these things, then we can just turn off the resource leniency. We can say, hey, you're paying your own way. You can use these 3 to 5 to 6 whatever transactions to universal basic transactions each day. You're set there, or dApps can stake for you, or you can stake for yourself, or you can set your wallet to invisibly do all the staking you need, or you can just buy Squirrel tokens or similar tokens. Those are the ways to do it. And the freebies are turned off. The great thing about that is everyone gets used to paying their own way, and it's just a great way to go. So we are ready to do that as soon as these other steps, these last 2 or 3 steps are done. Finally, and this is the most controversial, but it shouldn't be, as a last, step 7 is, as a last resort, if somebody's really attacking the chain, not paying their own way, it's not a result of some bad management, or under management of how Rex works, but there's a real attack, then the block producers have the right to shut down API nodes or blacklist attacking accounts. It's totally a goalie in the net approach. Against real attacks. We don't really want to do that. We certainly don't need to do it now. It's gray listing has worked great for us, which simply means that people just pay their own resources now before we've turned it off for everyone. And so that's our approach. I'm open to questions now about other things, other things that are happening, like Dan Larimer's proposal, why I think that the Telos approach is a better for all users, what the exploits are, any details about the overview I've just given. So I'm going to go look through some of these questions, but shout out some new ones, because I apologize, I'm not great at talking and looking at tweets coming in. So, okay. So, Dizzy Lizzy says, what's Dan's approach? So Dan Larimer of Block One, CTO of Block One, and genius behind the EOSIO concept, proposed a new approach, which basically would end free transactions on EOS.io chains that used it. Essentially, everyone would send all their tokens to Rex. There would be no longer could you simply stake for yourself. You would put it all into Rex, and then you would buy from Rex what you needed. To me, that seems, number one, like it's a convoluted problem. It seems like there's the high likelihood of unforeseen issues. Let's remember, there was a CPU problem. Rex came out as the solution to that CPU problem. Now there's a Rex CPU problem, and there's this new resource model that EOSIO that Dan is proposing and that they're going to be coding. I think that constantly having new grandiose big changes is not the right way to manage a chain that people are looking for as a solution, right? Rex was supposed to be the solution. It didn't work out of the box, but doesn't mean it can't be made to work, right? So this is our approach. We think, and somebody's asking, do we have choices? Yeah, we absolutely have the choice. Block One is in the process of coding this new solution. it's going to probably take like 5 months. 5 or 6 months. That's what it took for Rex to come out after he announced it. It could take 3 months, whatever. But if you say, okay, this is a solution we like, then basically you're saying we're not going to do anything about this until this new code comes out and goes through the release candidates and all these things. I think that's a mistake. I think we need to take action immediately, which is why we've done this and why we started writing about this and approaching this 3 months ago. Again, that's an advantage you get when you have your own core dev group and highly responsive BPs working closely together. By the way, this is not, Telos has a great working relationship with Block One. We love the code they make. We fully expect that any changes that they bring out to enable this are going to be optional. There's no question. That's just not, that they're not going to force us to take this model. It will be up to every chain to decide which model they want to use, whether they want to stick on their old model, the existing model, or they want to go to this new model or something else. So I propose, and so far this has been what the block producers and core devs have agreed with, is that we continuously try to optimize and improve this, find the problems where we can, address them, test the code, deploy it. We are well on our way in doing this. It seems to be working well. We're very fortunate that we don't have the exploits, the level of exploits that's on EOS. About that, so here's the thing. This coin, Rich Coin on Telos, it's meaningless. Again, they're using delegated proof of stake resources to do proof of work mining of a token that has no function, right? It's really being mined. I just looked before this. It's being mined by about 3 to 6 accounts. It's being traded back and forth by the miners themselves. Currently 1 million rich coin equal 3 Telos or 18 cents at current prices. So it's just there's no economic benefit to it. So you know, it's possible that we just have smarter users, but it's not really a problem on our network, and so that's we're fortunate in that way, right? That doesn't mean we're better. It just means we're very fortunate that we don't have the level of problem that EOS has. We're fortunate that we have the ability to look at what they're doing first and what's happening there and get a little heads up. These things are all really fortunate things for Telos, but we're taking good advantage of them. Yeah, I don't think that the Larimer proposal is a good one long term. If it turns out to be when the code comes out, then we can adopt that. But I think it's better for us to work right now on optimizing, taking small steps, not waiting for some hero. You know, like this is not a chain where we're waiting for anybody else to be our white knight. We're the princess who saves herself on Telos. We're not waiting around for anybody to solve our problems for us. What dApp on Telos has the most users? That's a great question. So I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I know that Seeds has been launching and doing, they had their first on-chain vote. They're making citizens, and I think that's using using a pretty good number of transactions. I think that the actual apps that have the most transactions are some of the IoT apps that we don't really know what they are, but people are recording stats, log stats and things like that on the chain. We don't know if these are real uses or proof of concept. Some of them are real uses. For example, the telescope has their CIDR provenance, proof of CIDR that's recording real things. Some of these things may be POCs. Some of these things maybe looks like a building management system. So I don't know exactly. People don't have to give us the heads up on when they're using Telos. They just have to pay their resources. So there are actually, if you really look closely, there are some things that we don't know if they are, but somebody's using Telos and they're paying to use it, and it's great. The rich mining is by far the most, even though it's only being done by a few people. But I see, like on Piranha. There's a Piranha.io. If you haven't looked at that, it's a Q&A format website, much like Stack Overflow. There are groups that ask questions about Telos, ask questions about seeds, ask questions about, or not seeds, ask Squirrel Wallet, a number of other things. And it's actually a really great way to go and have like kind of a live user updated FAQ that people will receive these peer tokens for. So I think that's kind of for something that just started a little while ago, that's growing. There's a number. I don't know. I didn't prep for that question, but there's a number of actual real uses. I know that Havuda is doing doing some outcome management and data collection about international aid. That's really happening. These are real things that are happening. Sesa Cash, there are transactions, happening in Nigeria and Ghana. There's a number of real uses. It's still quite small, but it's exciting because they're all real things, right? They're not. I don't have anything against dice games, but I think that a chain where the users are doing real world situations real world problem solving are more impressive to me. So seeds. There's a question about seeds. Katie is saying that seeds is a currency backed by altruism. I don't know if that's entirely true. What it is, think about seeds as a way for people to organize around a purpose, which is what we do on Telos. That purpose is regenerative economies. Generally, anything that makes that is as ecologically based or there's a number of ways that things can be regenerative economies as opposed to consumptive economies, right? How do you know what a good project is or isn't? Well, Seeds is letting their own users decide through voting using a lot of the really special tools that we've created through Telos Decide, right? This is our voting as given to other apps, right? So they let their members, their citizens, vote on whether a project is worthy and whether milestones that have happened on it are achieved, right? If it sounds really similar in many ways to the Telos Works WPS system, I don't think you'd be far off. It's just not using our own pool of Telos for that. It's using their own pool. It's focused on a very specific purpose, right? This regenerative economy, which is really awesome. But you can. But this is something that can be rolled out for a lot of things. So that's kind of what Seeds does. It's not just about altruism. It's about accomplishing things that the Seeds citizens communities have voted and determined. Using our tools, have determined are worthwhile and in the interest of the group. This is again where people meet purpose on Telos, and they're using those tools. So. I'm actually really excited about that. If you want to see a really cool Telos app, by the way, go into the App Store and download Seeds Passport. This is cool. I would show if I didn't break the live stream, I would show you it. It's a really cool app. I mean, it's as good as anything in blockchain. I guarantee you. Check it out. A lot of the work was done by Max of Telos Kitchen. The development work. It's continuously going. And spoiler alert, I've seen the next set of tools coming, and it's incredible. You guys, your heads are going to explode. This is really so good. So I would suggest people jumping onto Seeds. If you haven't, go check out the Seeds Passport app. If you want to feel really good about something that's already running and working on Telos. All right, more questions, please. I'm going to find Marshall's. Let's see, I'm going to look up for more. Yes, Telos' new tagline should be Save Yourself. Yeah, okay, so somebody says that this is some I'm not sure what you were talking about, but exactly, but Loki Money said it's a Band-Aid, not a solution. I don't know what the exact thing is, but let me address that because some problems have solutions that are just really big, awesome, solve everything solutions, and some problems have solutions that are more addressing, things as they come. There are Band-Aids. The idea that Band-Aid solutions are bad is, if you think Band-Aid solutions are bad, then go get a bunch of cuts and don't have any Band-Aids. Band-Aid solutions are much better than no solutions, right? I realize that it would be ideal for us to find great solutions for everything, but not everything has that. Some things require ongoing management and addressing as they come up, and sometimes you really do just have to stick your hole in the dike so the sea doesn't come through, but that's far better than not doing it, right? So dismissing something because it's a Band-Aid solution is kind of crazy, right? It's like don't you use Band-Aids when you have a cut? Okay, then Band-Aid solutions are not really that bad. Ideally, yeah, we want to have as many really long-term things as possible, but when something needs a Band-Aid, we will put one on it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Okay, what can we do to help Telos grow? I think one thing you could do, we could all do, is look at these dApps that actually are on Telos and use them. Right. One of the things I really want to see is we talk about Telos as a network. People talk about these things as networks, but I don't think that most blockchains currently are networks. I think they are platforms that have a number of dApps on them that exist side by side with very little cross-pollination. Something that I want to see with Telos is a true network where users from one are using another. Right, where, for example, there's a proposal for a weather balloon, right? A Telos Works proposal for a weather balloon to monitor. This would be a test thing, as a scientific. I think it'd be great. Personally, I support it. Those guys are working with Cash because it's going to happen in Africa. They need people on the ground there. That's a great way to have 1 + 1 equal 3. I hate saying that, but synergy, right? Havuda is also, I believe, working with Cash because they deliver or they measure the outcomes of international aid, and so by having groups on the ground already, those that they can pay in the existing payment system. That's a big advantage for them. They could go try and find some other payment system or whatever, but it's way better for them to use the existing ones. Piranha.io, I just mentioned, they have a great Q&A system, and I believe that they're going to start providing that for all kinds of Telos apps, right? So what can we do to help Telos grow? Use it, right? Actually use it. Like Joe, go get a Piranha account. Go try out Seeds. If you don't like it, it's not a chore. It's not eating broccoli, which I actually like. But it means that, but try them out. Because the more the users that these get, the more, by the way, every time you try something out, it's an opportunity for you to find something that you like that you didn't already know about. And that's a good thing in life. Use it. That I would say, if you want to help Telos grow, use it. Tell people about it, all kinds of things, but using it is really the best, I think. What's the latest on Draco's Keep? Draco's Keep is going to be an awesome game from Goodblock. We wanted to be truly decentralized as much as a blockchain game could be, and more than anyone ever has before. And so to do that, we needed to create decentralized storage and a decentralized marketplace. So we are just about to launch, we believe in January, a revolutionary, no one's ever done it before, working technically and economically working decentralized storage solution called dStore. Once we have that, we can build out and that's up and running. We can build out the marketplace, the D Realms marketplace, And then once that's done, we can do Draco's Keep, get back to Draco's Keep. I want to do it. You have no idea how much I want that to be out right now, but you know, there's dependencies that we need to, that have to exist first. And by the way, each of those dependencies is actually much bigger, right? So D-Realms is actually a much bigger opportunity than Draco's Keep itself, and D-Store as this decentralized storage is actually a much bigger opportunity, massively bigger opportunity for Telos and everything in the world than just D-Realms, right? So we're building bigger things. I don't think there's anything bigger than we need to build than D-Store. So once we get that built, we can kind of come back and work on the underlying things. Let's see. I did address D-Store. Other African apps. So we're having a fantastic response in Africa. The first, by the way, people don't talk about it as much. The first African app was in Egypt, made by Amina Babawi, and one of the, I believe, the first recipient of the Good Grant, which is Teach Coin, also called Eat Coin on education and technology on EOS. And that's a learning app. I think he has about 2,000 students already, and he's looking to expand that, all recording their points rewards on Telos. It's very exciting. I have high hopes for it. Other things in Africa, we have, you know, Telos for Africa in Ghana and Nigeria, that are doing killer videos. They're doing some Marshall's. I want to pull up Marshall's awesome music video, because it's pretty sweet. They have, and Sesicash is a payment platform there. In South Africa, by the way, there's the world's first South African rand denominated stablecoin, the EZAR, was launched by EOS South Africa, and amazingly, it seems like their government is like, okay, you know, so I'm pretty excited about that. And I think that I think we're about to see other African nations follow suit. I can't really say anything specifically about that, but I think, you know, what's interesting in Africa is this. And I traveled there about 3 times, but I was really educated on this from some people, especially Rory, but some other people as well. If you want to pay a bill, like a phone bill, not contested, nothing, if you want to pay a bill between one African nation and another, it takes a minimum of about 3 months to pay a bill, right? There's really no clearinghouse for multiple African currencies to you know, exchange against each other in the real world. But that could have that. We could have that on Telos. Telos could actually be the first, right? The rand is one of the region, the continent's probably strongest currencies. There's others, you know, like the Kenyan shilling, and you know, there's a number, but they don't. There's not a lot of ways for them to sort of like daily interact with each other and do cross multinational payments. With these stable coins denominated in African national currencies, the first solution for that is very likely actually to be on Telos, and I think it'd be huge, because it means that it takes away, anytime we can take away that friction from anytime we take away from the friction from financial transactions, it just makes people's lives easier. And this is not like some, you know, and these are not situations like some others where there's just like huge, they take 10% or 15% or whatever like that to do it. These can be done very inexpensively, and it just unlocks a ton of financial possibilities for, you know, African nations, which have largely been overlooked and bypassed, right, by a lot of the big players. This is Africa's chance to come back. So I'm very excited about everything that's happening in Africa, but mostly the passion, and I like the music too. I like this. I gotta get this. I gotta get this new track playing for you. This is pretty good. Still together, we can be stronger. Telos of Africa. Right? I mean, that's some talent. All right. I think that's pretty cool. I think, yeah, go Marshall. When people spontaneously create art and songs about you, it means they love you. And even from the beginning, people have been making art, and now we've got two people making songs. By the way, get those things on Zeptagram, right? And let's make this the network that we really believe it is. Wow, I'm so happy that people are super passionate about this. I think this has been great. Sorry for the late start. It's gone about an hour. If anybody has more questions, hit me up. Otherwise, maybe we'll call this a great first Telos Tuesday. All right, thanks, guys. We'll let Marshall play us out again. How's that? All right. All right, bye guys. See you next Telos Tuesday. See you next Telos Tuesday.